Welcome to Political Fixer Live. I'm Shauna Presley Bircher, and if you've never joined us before for a Political Fixer Live, then guess what? I'm not the only one that's going to be participating this evening. We want to hear from you as well. We want to hear all about the headlines, stories, and social justice and political topics that are on your mind this evening. So just submit your questions and comments below, and our Political Fixer team will make sure that I see and get to as many of them as possible. We're going to give it a couple of minutes for more people to join us. I'm going to check here on my assistant, Ella. 1 second. So Ella is my daughter's cat who sometimes makes an appearance for us on TikTok Live, and she's right here at my feet. So if suddenly she decides to join us, you'll see her furry little cute self soon. All right, so we've got a full lineup this evening. We want to make sure that we give people a chance to participate, and I want to say welcome to all of the subscribers that are joining us. Let me tell you what you're in for tonight's show. Our political buzz trending topic that we're going to start out with is, you may predict this, the United Healthcare CEO story. I'm going to share with you what the latest is, but how I believe this story could impact the political agenda for the new Congress coming in. So we're definitely going to want to talk about that for a little bit. We're going to spend a little bit of extra time on our Fixer call to action. We had a Fixer call to action last week, and guess what? We already are seeing results from that, and we have hot off the presses a new way that we can jump in and make a difference together. So I'm very excited about that. We're going to give you an update on Equal Rights Now, our effort to get women in the Constitution. Finally, we have some really exciting things that are happening with all of that, and some new updates, some new ways you can all participate. And then we're also going to give you another bit of a sneak peek into what you can expect in January. We're rolling out a lot, and I've got some team members here tonight that have been working with us long hours, Eddie, Sarah, Mia, and Jason, that are going to be answering some questions in the chat, making sure that you all get the assistance you need, make sure I can see all of your questions and comments, but I also want to give them credit for what happens when the cameras are not rolling. They have been working really hard to bring you some really cool features for all of our Fixer family in the new year. And then one of my favorite parts of a Political Fixer Live is hearing from you. We are going to be taking your questions throughout the show, but at the end, it's an Ask Me Anything segment, and your question might get selected for us to discuss and to weigh in on. So definitely get those questions coming in, and we'll take as many of the questions as we can. I see we've already got a lively group this evening, already at over 1,000 likes. And so let's dive in and get started. All right. Let's start with the United Healthcare CEO story. How many of you have been following this? So I got sucked down a little bit of a rabbit hole yesterday evening because in preparation for today, I wanted to see, what does TikTok have to say about what is going on with the United Healthcare CEO saga. We're going to be using some PG language here, so if I dance around some phrasing and terminology, it's because on our West Coast, for our family over there, it is only 5:30 in the evening, and some of you might have little ears listening, as you've let me know. Sometimes you've got it on while you're making dinner and running errands in the car and things. So we're going to keep this very PG, don't worry. But I'm sure by now many of you know what happened to the United Healthcare CEO when he was traveling in New York for a national healthcare insurance conference. Well, since that time, they have made an arrest of the person that they believe perpetrated the incident. Now, this incident with the crime, let's talk about that for just a bit. A few surprising twists and turns here as we followed this for the last several days. I think the nature of the person who perpetrated this incident caught some of us off guard. First of all, the person did not fit, let's say, a typical looks profile. This person looked like they were ready to star in their own Netflix documentary whenever that time may come. So that kind of caught the internet off guard just a little bit. Young, socially active online, had it's interesting to me when you normally see crimes on the news and they're showing the shots of things. Maybe you'll get one loving photo of them from the family or a yearbook photo. Usually it's a photo many of us would be humiliated to have spread across global headlines. But this guy, everything seemed like a magazine cover shoot. So that was the surprising incident number one. He comes from a very wealthy background. So, and also is extremely intelligent, valedictorian of his class, Ivy League, went to UPenn, got a master's in some sort of computer science or computer programming. So it's very interesting how that story has unfolded on the crime side. On a personal note, I'm a little surprised that he was arrested instead of an alternative once they knew where he was. So that's going to be interesting as we hear his side of the story and we await to see if this progresses to trial. I'm sure that'll keep us captivated for weeks, if not months on end. But here's where I would like to take the story, which is what surprised the media, a number of corporate executives, and also surprised a lot of people in power, which was our response collectively, I'm using a generalization here, to what happened to United Healthcare CEO. There was outrage, as CBS News called it, a volcanic eruption of emotion, but not where they believed it would be. In fact, many of us took to social media and other like comment boards on news articles and online with friends and family, texting back and forth because of our outrage with the healthcare system and insurance providers in particular. I don't know about any of you, but I'm assuming that many of you have a healthcare nightmare story that you could share about either yourself or a loved one or someone you know that was not able to receive critical care that they needed because of either lack of access in the healthcare system at all or denial of coverage. For myself, this was a very young lesson. And my father in Texas, a refinery worker who worked extremely hard and paid into his insurance policy for years and years, he had a severe heart attack at a younger age and he needed triple bypass surgery. Now, luckily, the hospital where they took him accepted him as a patient before all of those forms and approvals were done. Nowadays, I don't think that would happen. So those life-saving crucial moments, they paid off from the hospital and care perspective. But the insurance company denied his triple bypass surgery for coverage. They called it an elective procedure. And it financially devastated my family. And at a very young age, everything changed for us overnight. We not only nearly lost my father, he had to stay. If any of you are familiar with the Ronald McDonald housing, he was so ill for so long, my mom had to stay with him. We had to go into my brother and sister and I had to go into different care with different family members. And then even when he came home, even at a young age, we knew something was different because we just didn't understand it was because the finances were different. So all of us have those stories and we all express ourselves in different ways. And man, some of you are extremely creative and many of you are very funny, even during very dark times. So, we're going to keep going with why this matters, but I want to take for a second and say hi to Professor Liberty Esquire, Gia Goal, Edna, Nicole, and Chris Bunch 2004. It's so good to see some of our political fixer family on this evening. We are talking about the United Healthcare saga and what that might have to do with the political maneuvering moving forward. Okay, so you all responded. I'm not saying all of you responded the same. I am not judging you based on how you may or may not have responded. However, people took notice. And I just posted a video, I think yesterday, about one of the impacts of this. But what I'd like to talk about tonight is moving forward. What do we think this impact will be on the new Congress? Now, let's give some context here. The Republican members of Congress have been running essentially on repealing Obamacare, getting rid of Obamacare, and quote unquote replacing it with something better for years. If you aren't someone that follows politics all the time, let me give you some context. Since Obamacare has become law, Republicans in Congress have worked to either repeal, defund, or strip away key portions of the Affordable Health Care Act over 70 times. 70 bills have been filed to try to strip away or demolish the Affordable Health Care Act. In fact, calling it Obamacare was their idea, because if they could attach it as some sort of slur with some sort of, at the time, very divisive name, like, you don't need that, that's his healthcare. And that was highly effective as well. In fact, in places like Kentucky and states that were not exactly friendly Obama territory at the time, they had to rename the healthcare portals. They couldn't even call them Affordable Health Care Act portals or the ACA portals because no one was using them. But once they renamed them and just started talking about the benefits of the coverage, lo and behold, over time, as people understood the coverage, then, as imperfect as it might be, it was better than what existed prior to this. And just last year, over 21 million Americans enrolled in some version of Obamacare. That brought a total of over 45 million Americans that are currently utilizing some version of the Affordable Health Care Act coverage. And that doesn't count the benefits that many of us see on our health care that, regardless of coverage, we benefit from. For example, if you have a pre-existing condition and then later you get a job or you get new health care, they can't exclude you or deny you a policy just because you already had the condition by the time you signed up for the policy. So we see these impacts in our insurance. Again, as imperfect as it still is, we still see these very critical impacts across the board. All right, so what does this mean? Moving forward, they have vowed to repeal or demolish the Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act. Again, this was during the election cycle. Many congressional leaders who got elected as Republicans that are about to be sworn in or seated again, they said they're going to repeal this. Here's my question. Will what happened with the United Healthcare CEO and the public outrage that they are all witnessing that has got them spooked, will this slow down the ripping away of healthcare for millions? On TikTok, we're already seeing trends of videos of people who are discovering that, right, wrong, or indifferent, that the affordable care that they have is Obamacare. And that, in fact, some of them voted to get rid of Obamacare, and they're now in the finding out phase of understanding that that is their care that might disappear. So we were already seeing an awareness shift. I'm going to slide right past my frustration that this happened after the election and keep going with this point. And I want to say thanks for everyone for sticking with me as I get you here. We're already at almost 13,000 likes, and I definitely want to read some of your comments soon. So if you've got things to share on this, we definitely want to see them. So team, I know we take a lot of questions at the end of this segment. Let's get some comments and questions about this into the chat here so I can see it. Okay, so how do we know what's going to happen? Prior to the election, they were running on one thing, which was we're going to replace it with something better. And we had that infamous moment during the debate when asked what that something better might be, where we heard that they had concepts of a plan. So essentially, there isn't anything to replace it with. But we do know that a number of key figures in the MAGA GOP have said they want to take away Obamacare and defund or diminish Medicaid and Medicare. Will that still happen? Well, two people in particular who have been appointed or nominated, I should say, nominated to key healthcare positions in the cabinet are Dr. Oz and RFK Jr. Here's what I think we're going to see. I think the Senate confirmation for these two individuals, and there are several that have been nominated to healthcare positions, but these are the two most notorious. Those confirmation hearings were, in my opinion, going to be something that I needed to pay attention to anyway. I wanted to hear what their plans are, if there are any, and I wanted to see how this would impact all of us moving forward. So in the months ahead, as we see these Senate confirmation hearings, we're now going to be paying attention even more to see what do they say about repealing the Health Care Act, the Affordable Health Care Act, now that all of this public sentiment has come to their attention. Oh, I love the beautiful swan. So pretty. We're going to be watching for that. Now, all hope is not lost here, because Here's a couple of key things to keep in mind. RFK Jr., while he is known for being anti-vaccine and a little bit on the eccentric side, shall we say, he has stated that he wants to make America healthier. We're going to skip right past the fact that there's very few details on this. We're going to slide right on past the fact then when a certain first lady named Michelle Obama tried to get kids to eat an apple, certain people freaked out. We're going to go right past all of that and just hope that we can take him at his word that he means what he says. Well, it's really hard to say that you want to make America healthier and also in this next breath say you want to take away healthcare for millions. So I think that might be a way in to create some political pressure with him to not strip away healthcare. Dr. Oz has long been a celebrity. He has been a celebrity first. Many of us know him from his days on the Oprah Winfrey Show. You have a celebrity who later ran for office in a U.S. Senate seat who's now taking an even more public position in government. What does that tell me about this person? It tells me that he needs to be liked. He needs to have the adoring public. And you don't get that if you take something away from them. So ironically, those two individuals being nominated to healthcare positions could be a way for us to exert some very strong, but also safe and not at all violent public pressure to improve our healthcare systems rather than making it worse. All right, let's hear what you all have to say. Hi, everyone. If you're just joining us, I'm Shauna Presley Vircher, the Political Fixer. This is Political Fixer Live, and right now we're talking about the political buzz, the top trending topic for the week, which is, I'm sure it would not surprise many of you to learn, the United Healthcare CEO story and what impact it might have on our healthcare and healthcare legislation moving forward. But before we get to that, I want to go ahead and take some comments. So Greg Pugh 845 said Republicans have only one objective: increasing profits in healthcare and nothing more. Greg, I completely agree with you that profits and donors that make all those profits have been the priority 100% of time in recent years. I guess my question is, do we think that now that they would take such backlash if they did something to basically demolish or take away healthcare for millions, does that political cost weigh on them, particularly if they're in a congressional seat that they have to get reelected in 2 years? Maybe, maybe not. You're right that profits and greed do tend to drive a lot of decisions in the Beltway. I just don't know if maybe the fear of repercussions might for once outweigh it. I don't know. But great comment. Kathy says, Dr. Oz, they privatize our Social Security. She's against not privatization. It's so scary because we're paying for it. Yes, Kathy, this idea of privatizing Social Security has been floating around as this kind of dark whisper in the Beltway for years and years and years. It was only recently when Florida's own U.S. Senator Rick Scott put it in a PowerPoint for a meeting that they couldn't run away from the objective. For years, it was like, you're going to privatize it. They're like, no, we would never. And then they'd have a meeting where they're like, we're absolutely going to privatize it, right? So this happened and the media kind of fell for it the way that Charlie Brown falls for the football and Lucy every single time. Until that moment that Rick Scott put it in writing. Then they couldn't run away from the policy. Now, I expected them to kind of deny it, but Kathy's right. They've been doubling down, saying, yeah, we're going to do it because it costs too much money. We're going to privatize. We're going to strip it down. We're going to extend the retirement age on benefits for Social Security. All these different things that they've said out loud, but have people heard them? It's one thing to hear things in a speech when you're really excited and you're kind of blinded by red team versus blue team. When checks start to, cease in the mailbox or go down, then we might see, again, a public sentiment change. I don't know. Eve Golding said journalists should be asking what people want to see and speaking that to power. I agree with you, Eve. Unfortunately, and that's a really great point, so many of our journalism outlets have been gobbled up by corporate media and by corporations and corporate stakeholders. And so unfortunately, there's kind of you still have some amazing journalists out there. You still have some amazing publications out there. But I think one of the reasons that we're seeing places like CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times and look at Washington Post let us down sometimes is not because of the journalists not doing their jobs, but because of pressure that they're feeling from their editors, their stakeholders, their owners, their publishers. So it'll be interesting to see if they're allowed to speak truth to power. But in the meantime, we have lovely platforms like this one and so many others. And you all drove that conversation. If you hadn't been posting these comments about your response to the United Healthcare CEO saga, the media would not have reported the story the same way. Originally, they were reporting it as this shock. Can you believe this happened? Someone just had this happen to them in the middle of the day. And every parent of an elementary school child is like, yes, can you believe that out of anywhere, gun violence happens in America, right? I mean, to many of us, we're like, okay, yeah, we've been singing this song. What are you doing? Oh, I understand. He's extremely wealthy, powerful, and looks a certain way. Gotcha. So they were running with that playbook until all of you started posting a different take. And collectively, we all changed that media cycle. So definitely, I hope that pressure comes up. All right, Edna, having outbreaks of whooping cough, respiratory issues with children in a small, yes, I have been reading about that, Edna, the outbreaks of whooping cough, and we're also seeing other treatable diseases and illnesses. So here's the fear that I have. We now have not just an inherent distrust in government and media, but we also have an inherent distrust by some of medicine at all and science. So you have a number of parents that are opting out for a lot more of the treatments, vaccines, and preventative measures that they could take. You know, it's about to be winter, flu season. How many people are going to get those shots? How many are going to get boosters with COVID compared to before? So I think the whooping cough I have been following. You've also got measles making a comeback. So as we're looking for the very big picture of insurance and coverage and Social Security, another thing we're going to be watching with this administration is to see what happens with things like vaccines and access to care and insurance companies being made to cover the costs of those vaccines and access to care for children. Really good point, Edna. 75 Corvette said, healthcare had begun as a not-for-profit care where doctors charged as they saw fit for the community. That is such a good point. I was reading more about the history of this. I think I'm going to do more about this later because I didn't realize that the first kind of insurance companies in the United States, I believe, started in Texas. So I'm going to be looking into that as a Texan. But I can tell you that I grew up in a very small town with one of those family doctors that did everything, right? He delivered the babies. If you had a heart attack, he was at the hospital waiting for you. If you had something wrong with whooping cough, he would be the one that you see. And it was a farming community as well as a refinery town. And there were still, at that time when I was very young, he would still accept payment in animals. It was a sign of respect when a family could not give you cash for them to give him like a chicken that would lay eggs. And so it's not as far in our rear view in some communities as we think. And now we've got this corporatized medicine where I'm sure, looking back, that there were flaws in that process, but at least he was trying to give you whatever care he knew that he could give you. He wasn't calling a phone number and asking someone on the other end for permission to treat us first. But yeah, the for-profit healthcare system, we could be all night on that. Great point, 75 Corvette. And then Deidre Hovey said, gun reform would be more likely to happen if the target were CEOs and billionaires and not children. So here's something scary, Deidre, that I was preparing for this show, and I realized that he had what's called a ghost gun. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I would just like to point out that for those of you that might not be familiar, a ghost gun is essentially a gun that can be printed using nothing more than a 3D printer and some plans and a couple of minor pieces and parts. Why does that matter? Because it means you don't have to go into any type of store or shop to acquire it, so it can go completely off the radar. Now, for a number of years, people have suggested measures and legislation to try to eliminate or at least curb ghost guns, somebody from being able to create a ghost gun and go undetected until it's too late. It could be making it illegal for you to post plans. It could be adding trackers to some of those websites that offer plans and following online the people and their behaviors that try to make a ghost gun. There's a lot of things that have been suggested, but kind of not surprising to many of us, none of it has really taken hold. If you have one of their own, a billionaire of the ruling corporate elite. And he was, again, being mindful of little ears. That incident happened with a ghost gun. If they still do nothing, then that outlook is going to be very bleak as far as any, sensible gun legislation for the next few years. But again, it's partially up to us. We can continue to keep up the pressure and try to make them do something. But I'm going to be interested to see if that even becomes a talking point, because right now it's all been about the healthcare and basically, certain people saying, this is wrong, and other people, yes, we agree. So maybe stop doing it to millions and millions of us on healthcare plans. So it's an interesting debate we're going to see. All right, let's look at gifts. Joy, Jay Sullivan, October, Steeler Fan 76, Mojo Smooch. It's so good to see you tonight, Mojo. And Deidre Hovey. We've got gifts coming in. I see you all just so active tonight. Love the questions and the comments that are coming in. I also want to say hi to Mara of the Wild too. Mojo Smooch, I saw you earlier. So good to see you. And again, hi to Chris, Gia, Edna, Nicole, and Professor Liberty Esquire, our Fixer family. If you have not yet subscribed to be one of the Fixer family, become a subscriber to Political Fixer. And we're going to be rolling all kinds of new benefits because partially we have gotten some great support from TikTok with new features. And also, if I'm being extremely honest with you, I, who am not exactly native to the TikTok land, I am learning how to use more of these features. So we'll be talking more about the specifics of the new things that are coming in January, more towards the end of the program. But different features include some emotes. We have some new strong women emotes. We're going to be focusing on strong women in pop culture. That's our new set of emotes that all of you are going to be getting shortly. You'll also get a chance to weigh in on topics. You get access to comments and questions and all of the chat and DMs with a higher priority when things get a little crazy around here. And then we also have other gifts and incentives we try to find with different providers and partners along the way, just to make sure that you all get spoiled in the lifestyle we would like you all to become accustomed to as part of the Fixer family. We are already at over 30,000 likes. It's such a good evening to just get together with all of you and talk about some things that are happening across the country. Now, we started with the political buzz. Got a little bit dark, I understand, when we're talking about such heavy topics, but I'm going to bring us back up again, and I'm going to talk about our Fixer call to action because I have some really fun things to report. On last week's Political Fixer Live, we did our Political Fixer call to action was for many of you to reach out to media outlets, post on social, and also reach out to elected officials to try to stop the confirmation of Pete Hegseth, who has been nominated to become the new Secretary of Defense. He needs to be confirmed for that. If you missed that live, don't worry. You can go to the YouTube channel. That's something new that we just started. At any time, go to @Political Fixer at YouTube. And on Thursdays, we're going to be posting the episodes in full right there for you to see. Or you can go to politicalfixer.com, and right there, there's a link on the homepage. So you can see everything that we had to say about Mr. Hegseth and why I believe, I'm going to use myself, I believe that he would be a dangerous person and highly unqualified to be in a position as critical as Secretary of Defense. Well, sometimes it can feel like the world and the deck are stacked against us, but there's already been some positive movement. So first I want to share with you that update, and then I'll get into this really exciting and positive Fixer call to action for this week. All right. At the time that we recorded the Political Fixer Live last week, Mr. Hegseth was defiant. He basically wasn't taking the accusations from many women, again, mindful of little ears, that had been lobbied against him. He spoke to his mom and had her reverse an email that she had made basically outlining what a terrible person she thought her son was, and had his mom start calling senators and say he's a good person and to confirm him. very odd stuff. It's always very interesting to me how you have these super tough guys that say that women don't deserve extra rights and equal treatment, and then they get their moms to do their dirty laundry for them. So that's always interesting. So anyway, it was getting contentious on the Hill. He was pushing these. He was saying he wasn't going to submit to the background check by the FBI. Now, most of us would feel like, hey, is that a choice? Do you just get to say, nah, I don't really want to do that whole FBI background check? It's a strange timeline we're living on, and apparently he thought he could get away with it. All right, that was so last week. Thanks to public pressure that has been put by many of you and thousands of people across the country, the tide has started to shift. As of today, the person who is going to be entering the Oval Office admitted that his confirmation is not a sure thing. You had Hegseth himself saying, fine, I'll submit to the full background check, finally acknowledging that he actually has to work for this and plead his case. He personally has been having to meet with senators, and many of your moderate GOP senators, at least half a dozen, more than enough to kill this confirmation, have said that they are not comfortable with confirming him at this time. Now, we know there's going to be a ton of pressure to just hold the line, hold their noses, and say yes no matter what happens in those confirmation hearings. But if we keep up the public pressure, we already had Matt Gaetz, who was like, you know what, this is getting a little bit ugly even for me, so I'm going to dip out of here. We can continue that pressure against the Hegseth nomination and have an impact here. I don't know what will happen. It doesn't mean that we will win every fight, but it is a fight, in my opinion, that is worth having. So definitely, if you get a chance, stay on top of that story. Let's keep following that Hegseth story. If you have been applying pressure, if you've been calling people, if you've been amplifying stories about him and sharing it on your social, keep that up, and let's start identifying some of those, Murkowski and Collins and those moderate GOP senators that are uncomfortable, and let's make them a little bit more uncomfortable so that they are not okay saying yes to this guy. Okay, so job well done. When I started talking about that last week, I didn't know I'd have an update in a week. You all work extremely fast. So well done, Political Fixer family. But let me talk to you about the Political Fixer call to action for this week. Very excited about this. Okay. So for those of you just coming in, I'm Shauna Presley Vircher, the Political Fixer. And for those of you that are part of the Political Fixer family, I don't always talk about my day job. Bringing this information to you, working on key campaigns, being in the media, that's really only part of it. Our day job as a Political Fixer team is that we work on crisis management, we work on campaigns, we work to put pressure in certain ways in the media to pass legislation. And my particular specialty, aside from very tough crisis management jobs, is to actually go in and flip elections. That's what I do. I flip seats, congressional seats, mayor's races, governor's races, and occasionally the big ones. I have been in politics now for a number of years, and the way that I approach things is by finding that middle that hasn't made up its mind, that doesn't just sport the red jersey or the blue jersey, and I try to connect on shared values and show them that one candidate is clearly going to do things that make their lives better and the other is not. And making that messaging that's not very pro-Democrat, very anti-Republican, not just towing the party line, not just repeating the partisan talking points, that's how we are able to get things done that sometimes the party cannot. So one of those stories comes to us from years ago when I used to be on the air as an ABC News correspondent. And one of my former producers that had moved to another town called me. And he said, Shauna, I think that there is a seat you should take a look at as a project. I think it's flippable. Will you hear me out on this? I said, sure, absolutely. What are you thinking? He said, it's in Alabama. I said, you have got to be kidding me. He said, no, hear me out. I've looked at this. I'm familiar with it because apparently he went to school in Alabama. He knew something about it. I wanted to hear him out because we were friends. He was a former producer of mine, and also my late grandfather was from Alabama. Those are our people there, right? So we looked at it, and sure enough, when the guy who is going into the Oval Office this time, when he was there last time, he had brought a cabinet person with him, and that left a U.S. Senate seat in Alabama vacant. So when you take someone like that into the cabinet that's been elected, then there's a special election to fill that seat. Well, here's the thing about special elections. Because they're usually at really weird times, the turnout is really low. So if you can mobilize enough people and knock enough doors and talk to enough people, suddenly you can actually change something really dramatically. It's not just what we call an air war. Whoever has the most money, whoever runs the glossiest commercials, whoever gets the most media coverage. It's a way different type of race. Special elections, we can actually get in there. You know, you're convincing people to vote at all because a lot of them aren't even aware the special election is going on. You're convincing them to care about this race, and you're trying to convince them to pay attention to what's going on. That's really most of the battle. If you do that, the numbers are usually so low that you can flip a seat. So I literally got in at the time, my pickup truck, drove to Alabama and started meeting with people and learning the lay of the land. At the time, it was very new. They didn't even know who the nominee was going to be. And I love Alabama people. It's not just because they remind me of my grandfather, but also they are so polite. And they were extremely polite when they nodded and smiled and said, "Bless your heart, you think a Democrat can win in Alabama." And I'm sure that I sounded a little bit like a crazy person going there, or like Chicken Little, you know, we can win this election, we can win this election. But sure enough, a few short months, but a beautiful experience later, we were able to flip that seat. And I'll never forget, I was in a meeting in New York, and it was on the rooftop of a building in New York City. And at one point in time, they announced that Doug Jones had just become the new U.S. Senator for the state of Alabama. And all of Manhattan stopped, got out of their cars, and started honking their horns. It was a victory that the entire nation felt. And even though he did not win his reelection, the impact of that was so huge for the state of Alabama. They got a lot of positive attention. They got a lot of money. They got a lot of resources. And the people, do you understand how hard it is to be someone who's a Democrat in a small town in someplace like Alabama? You know how much hope and optimism you have to keep going to those meetings and knocking on those doors? I mean, I admire those types of people, right? Those are the types of people we want to help. And so getting them a victory, man, that's going to feed them for years and years and years. So even, it's not just the election, it's feeding that area of our country that we need to invest in for a generation of new Democrats. Okay, so I've given you my lead-in. Let me give you my pitch for our Fixer call to action. We were just talking about Mr. Gates. He did step down from Congress, arguably maybe a little too soon, because he was so sure he was going to sail into that cabinet position. However, the water got turned up, the boiling point got a little high for him, and he yeeted out of there. So now he's not going to be in Congress, and he's not going to be in the cabinet as of now. Stay tuned for the next episode of that soap opera. But for now, he's not there. In Florida, there is a special election for Matt Gaetz's seat. And I'm going to tell you about the amazing woman who is running to replace him. So I'll give you that information in just a second, but let's go ahead and talk about you first before I give you this amazing woman's profile. We are at already over 46,000 likes. We have hundreds and hundreds of you joining us on a Tuesday evening. That's amazing. I want to say hi to Divine AF Girl. It's so good to see you tonight. Mojo Smooch and Professor Liberty Esquire. Apparently you guys are really holding down some really great stuff in the comments and in your engagement there. DJC Wisdom. It's so good to see you there tonight. Melissa, apparently you're sharing this with a lot of people. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing that. And I also want to say hi to John J. Staples, who says he's at Blue Dot in Foley, Alabama, and we love Doug Jones. Isn't he the best? Just the nicest man. You guys have a lot of great people there. I just feel like we don't give them what they need to be successful. And we've got a lot of gifts coming in, so the team's going to outline some more of you gift givers there, and we're going to be making sure that we acknowledge you. I see Handful of Joy. I know you guys are sharing like lovely, look at that. Look at my rainbow head. So many amazing things. I love all of it. So thank you so much. Okay, let me tell you about a woman that I actually know a little bit about. I have not met her personally, but I know people that are going to be working on her campaign. All right, so running for the Matt Gaetz seat. And again, I understand it's very red. Trust me, I understand that it's Florida. But here's the thing. We don't need a party establishment to give us permission to act. And because the turnout is likely to be so low, we absolutely could organize and surprise people and take this seat. I do believe it. All right, so let me show you Gay. Let me make sure I pronounce her name correctly. Okay, so this is Gay Vallimont. I want to make sure I said it because I accidentally said Voldemort earlier, and that is not at all the vibe we want to send right now. Okay, so this is Gay Vallimont. This is her husband Brian and her son Eli. All right, now she is the sole Democrat running to replace the seat that was vacated by Matt Gaetz. So there's no primary for Democrats for this time, so you don't have to worry about rallying behind her early. She is going to be the Democratic nominee for this seat. The election is going to be, and I can't make this up, it's just going to be that kind of year. We're going to swear in the guy we're going to swear in on Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday, and apparently we're going to have these special elections on April 1st, April Fool's Day. Okay, it's just such a wacky season this year. Okay, so this election is going to be April 1st. Plenty of time to organize and still, not so much time, we can still catch them by surprise and try to flip the seat. Let me tell you a little bit about Gay. So that is a nickname that she's used for several years. She was a stay-at-home mom who was active in her community, and then when Sandy Hook happened, she decided that her engagement in her community was not enough for her. So she got extremely engaged as an advocate for preventing gun violence, particularly with children. She got engaged later at with the Moms Demand Action organization, has become extremely high up in leadership as a Moms Demand Action gun sense advocate. So she's been doing this for years and years and years, trying to help others. Now, in 2020, Gay actually had a tragedy that struck her personally. Her husband was diagnosed with ALS, and her son Eli was diagnosed with DIPG, which is a rare brain tumor. And it is shocking to me how she continues to give so much of herself. Both Brian and Eli passed away within months of each other. That was in 2020. And after she crawled out of her grief, she decided that she wanted to make her life count and do as much as she could for others. She did run for Congress this last time. She raised over $1.5 million against, again, none other than Matt Gaetz. Understandably, she was not able to flip it that time, but she fought the good fight. I can tell you, I know some of the people that were on that campaign. She ran a smart campaign, and she never compromised on her values or sold out, even though it may have gotten her more votes in the way her district was lined up. All right, so what are we going to do about all of this? If you were to go to politicalfixer.com right now, there is at the top, we've got the Equal Rights Now information, which we're going to talk about more in just a bit. And there is a new button in that Equal Rights Now section, and it is a red button that is a new donate link. And if you use that donate link instead of the normal teal one that we have, then half of the proceeds will go to Equal Rights Now, our effort to secure rights for women in the Constitution, and half of it will go directly to Gay's campaign to defeat Matt Gaetz. So right now, if you go to politicalfixer.com, those donations are going to go half and half. That's on behalf of Democracy Legacy. Democracy Legacy is going to split those donations between Equal Rights Now and Gay in the Congressional District 1, trying to assume her role in that Matt Gaetz seat. If you're wondering, the Republican who is going to be running against her, there is going to be a primary, but the front runner is Patronus. Now, again, here's some Harry Potter references. It's not on purpose, but not that kind of Patronus. Patronus, if you don't know him, if you don't follow Florida politics, he was the state CFO, Chief Financial Officer, but he most notoriously receives a full, healthy share of credit for completely allowing insurance carriers to run all over our state leadership and rewrite our laws so that we essentially don't have homeowners coverage anymore when hurricanes come through. If you've seen any of those 60-minute stories or national news stories where people like have a step down, one step into their living room, and so the insurance says, oh, that's a basement, you don't get anything covered. Yeah, that's Florida, and Petronas had a large hand in that. So we definitely don't want this guy in Congress, and he is the front runner for the nomination. So we've kind of got a great trifecta here. You've got a national figure who left this seat, so we're going to be able to get media attention, and it's the former Matt Gaetz seat, so that's leading the charge. You have a really strong, amazing woman who has a great story and who is a public servant at heart and honestly has more strength than I can imagine, who's worthy of this kind of calling to leadership, who's running for the office. And then we have a lovely villain on the other side who loves to allow insurance companies to run all over its citizens. So it is the recipe for possible success. So that is my call to you as fixers. I would like it if we could get involved in this race. I would welcome your suggestions for other calls to action. We're going to start doing this every week, coming up with different ways that we can make a positive impact together. And then, of course, reporting on the progress. All right, I'm going to do something here with our little bit of production stuff here as I take this very official charging cord and make sure to plug in my phone that I forgot to do earlier so I don't lose all of you lovely people. All right, here we go. Crisis averted. They don't call me a fixer for nothing. All right, we're almost at 55,000 likes. So we have so many of your hearts that are coming in. 75 Corvette is asking, what about phone banking? That is such a great point. Yes, there are other things we can do besides donate. So I've already put in a call to people that are high up in her campaign. I've asked if we can help, and they are welcoming us with open arms. I'm supposed to be talking to them early next week to find out where they would like us. And so in the weeks ahead, I'm going to be sharing that information with all of you. Now, we're going to be sharing a lot of this information on the platforms, of course, but sometimes it's nice to have things written down where you can print it out, the links, etc. So over the next couple weeks, you're going to notice that politicalfixer.com gets a lot more information on it. So when we talk about things like this, you're going to have the links right there directly to her campaign website. If we're going to all jump on together and do a phone banking night together, maybe we could plan a time that we try to go to Pensacola, those of us who can, and do some door knocking together. So we'll coordinate as much of that as possible. But yeah, we want to make sure that we show her that we're supportive. Those of you who can give, that's great. But great question, you're right. We also want to definitely do some phone banking as well. All right, for those of you that are just joining us or who are new to Political Fixer Lives, I'm Shauna Presley-Vircher, and we're taking your questions and feedback on the topics of the day. We started with the Political Buzz top headline, which was the United Healthcare CEO story and how that might impact our own healthcare coverage moving forward. And then we were doing a follow-up to last week's Political Fixer call to action, which I did not expect to have so soon. So that was actually our positive news story for the week, which is our impact potentially on the Hegseth nomination. We've also talked about the new call to action, which is helping to flip the congressional seat once held by Matt Gaetz, which is Congressional District 01. I'm going to give you a little bit more information here that you can use. If you missed part of the live, if you want to go back and get parts of it, we are now, for the first time, we're uploading the entire episodes to the YouTube channel at Political Fixer. You can get those on Thursdays, or you can go to politicalfixer.com and there's going to be links right there on the homepage as those new episodes become available. And we'll also, of course, include links to the other episodes. Some people aren't on TikTok, and we're going to start putting more of our videos over there for you to share. Some of you have asked me, like, hey, I wanted to share this video with my dad, but he's not on TikTok. No problem. We'll make sure that you have access to those on different platforms. So that's definitely something new we're working on in 2025. And you can always, the hub is always going to be politicalfixer.com. Now, why am I spending so much time on this? Because before we dive into more of your questions and comments, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one update on something happening in January, and that is the TikTok legislation. So hold that thought. I'm going to give you my insider update on that. But first, let me give you a let's go through some of the shout outs here. Marina NMP, it is so great to have you with us tonight. I also want to take pink flowers. When are special elections and when can we come down to campaign? So those special elections, unlike other elections, they're not all on one day for every seat. So we're going to be gathering those. I know that this particular Florida election, I confirmed it right before I came on the air, is April 1st. Now the reason it's April 1st so late is because Democrats do not have a primary in that election, so we won't need to do anything till the general special election, which is April 1st. As these cabinet positions start to take shape, as there's more vacancies in these other seats, we're going to look at those and make sure you have access to them and get the dates, and you might have more insights or access into a race in your neck of the woods. So definitely share that with us as well. As far as coordinated fixer team days, let's definitely plan on those, whether we do phone banking or we mobilize and get to, in this case, Pensacola. So I'm going to reach out to the campaign. My team's going to help us line up some possible dates, and we'll be sharing those with you. While I'm on the topic, another feature, subscribers, I know you all have been pushing me on this for a few weeks. We got it figured out. We're going to be adding a calendar to politicalfixer.com as well, where you can pre-schedule the lives. You'll know when we're going live ahead of time, exactly what time, when we're going to be doing another event on another platform, when I'm going to be in your area. We'll be doing a lot of traveling, especially with the Equal Rights Amendment. So we'll be able to get you that information ahead of time and then give you more ways that you can engage. I myself, as a crisis manager, tend to be a little bit more reactive, but getting organized is definitely a New Year's resolution, and I appreciate all of the positive accountability that my subscriber Political Fixer community is providing and helping to get us there sooner than later. Be kind, do better, make it matter. What a great handle. Be kind, do better, make it matter has a great comment here. Use the loss of vets benefits as a push in the Pensacola area. There are tons of military there. That's right. Pensacola does have a military base there. In fact, my late father-in-law served in the base at one point in Pensacola. Good. You're right. Veterans benefits, veterans care, how we treat our veterans. Really great point. And I'm going to pass that along to the campaign, but also you're kind of raising another great point, which is you guys are going to have a lot of great ideas to share with the campaign. So we need to come up with a way that we can funnel those ideas from you to me to the campaign, and you get to feel heard as part of this. So I'm going to call, when I have that meeting with the Valamont campaign, I'm going to get this, the Valamont campaign management team next week, then I will ask them how they would like us to do that. And how fun is this? You guys will have direct access to a congressional race. So that's going to be great. I think this is going to be a really good opportunity for us to get in there and cause some good trouble together. Okay. Linda B asked, what do you think of Ben Winkler for DNC chair? Ooh, Linda, that is such a great question, and I have very strong feelings about that. So I'm going to get to that question in just a second. First, Sarah, do we have our gifts? Let's see. Be kind, do better, handfuls of joy. I love that. Do we have more of the gifts that we can do shout outs for? If you can give those to me, then I'll definitely make sure that I shout you guys out. For those of you that are of the top, I think TikTok does the top 20 audience members who engage with all of your likes and comments and shares, and then also the audience members who do the gifts, then I follow you after all of this is said and done, after the live. So at the end of the program, we're going to announce our top audience members, our top fixer community. We're going to come up with a fun name for that, and we will make sure that I follow you when all of this is done as well. Okay. So, Linda, I'm going to get to your question in just a bit, but really quickly, I want to, oh, hey, Edna, thanks so much for the gifts. That's so great. I want to give you an Equal Rights Now update. This is a really big deal. We've had so much movement. So here's what I thought would happen. I thought we had the election. Everyone is exhausted. Some of us may or may not be completely emotionally gutted and going through all stages of grief at the same time. And then you have the holidays. So I thought it would be pretty slow in December. I was extremely incorrect. When we announced that we were launching Equal Rights Now, a national organization for you all to get involved and help us finally pass equal rights for women in the Constitution, hundreds, if not thousands of you reached out immediately. And we actually had to do a lot of infrastructure buildup to make sure that we could support this level of growth. The great news was that coincidentally, I had already had a meeting scheduled with some TikTok team members, including some of their leadership, and they wanted to know what was next for the Political Fixer community now that the election was over. And once I shared with them what our plans were to continue bringing you insights and information and engagement in some top social justice and political headlines where we can enact positive change, and also our big project to get equal rights for women in the Constitution, they could not have been more supportive. They have been great at saying, what do you need? How can we help you? What tools can we unlock? They are with us on this project. Now, I want to give you a quick update. Some of you may have been following the story that there is a legal battle right now where they are saying that should the legal battle progress, the worst case scenario is that TikTok could be shut down on January 19th. Or they could have to sell parts of their company that is owned by China, and they would have to restructure that ownership and I guess shares. I really don't know what the enactment of that decision would be in order to stay operable. There's a lot of legal filings happening back and forth. Just to let you know, I want to give a shout out to my team member, Sarah. Thanks to her poking and prodding, then she's like, you should offer to help. I did offer to help. Just so all of you know, as a fixer, I personally reached out to the head of content who I had a chance to get to know in Los Angeles. And I did offer not only our team services, but I said if there's anything our community can do to show our support for TikTok, to let us know. So I did offer all of us to help this situation. As of now, I'm sure she's extremely busy. We're waiting to see if they would like us to do anything, but she did send an email update and she said that they are fighting as hard as they can. We don't know what's going to happen with TikTok, but if you want my professional opinion, there is way too much money, way too much power, and way too much prominence on this platform on both sides of the aisle. I do not think it's going anywhere. I think if anything, they're going to force some sell-offs and some change of ownership, and so that might change some things philosophically. It remains to be seen. But I wouldn't get too worried about TikTok going anywhere right now. This is a gigantic company. We're going to see what happens and we'll be following that story. But in the meantime, let's assume that some very talented attorneys, team members, strategists, etc. of this ginormous organization and community we call TikTok, let's assume that they've got it handled and that they're doing a great job. And let's assume that we will all still be here together on January 20th, or maybe the 21st if some of us take a mental health day on the 20th. So what does that mean for the projects we're talking about moving forward? All right, let me give you an Equal Rights Now update because this is pretty important. And then I'm going to take some more questions. Okay, so right now we have a national team meeting date set on January 8th, which is a Wednesday, January 8th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Then we are going to be doing a national team meeting for Equal Rights Now on YouTube Live. So we'll be coming back from the holiday. We'll be doing our normal TikTok Live that Tuesday. And then that Wednesday, we will be doing the YouTube Live. If you go to politicalfixer.com, there is a new button. There's the Equal Rights Now is there towards the top. Then right underneath that, it has Political Fixer Live, and it takes you to last week's episode. And underneath that, there's, you guessed it, a new red button. I was feeling red today. There's a new red button, and that goes directly to that YouTube Live. So you can bookmark the page, you can add it to your calendars, and we're going to be making sure we reach out to more of you as much as we can to get you that information. So let me give you that date again. It is Wednesday, January 8th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be on YouTube Live. And if you miss it, of course, we'll make that available for you on the Political Fixer YouTube channel and a number of our socials and the website after the fact. Couple of points here. All of that information is also written on the website. We are in January also by then going to have the brand new Equal Rights Now web platform ready for you, so you can be following this not just from a national level, but at each state level as we look to re-ratify the states. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But I want to say something else about this. We don't know what will ever happen with any platform. Look at Twitter. It was a great place for me to go get news and information and resource until it wasn't. And so with that, if you feel comfortable going to politicalfixer.com and sharing with us your email address, we are going to start a Political Fixer newsletter so that if something does happen, you can always reach us. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing your email address, that's totally okay. Just make sure you bookmark politicalfixer.com so that if something happens and you want to get in touch, you'll see our office phone number. That's a real email address. We have real team members here. We actually do get your information. We're responding to you as quickly as we possibly can, but I'm getting to meet so many of you through that way. So please connect on other platforms if you feel comfortable so that we don't lose touch during this critical time. All right, one more Equal Rights Now update. First of all, I'm going to tease something. I cannot tell you what it is yet because we're not announcing it, but I can tell you that we have not one, but 2 states that have already said that they are going to work with us on re-ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment for the Constitution for women to be added to the Constitution. Not one, but 2 states have already said that. We are going to be making announcements on who they are and how you can get involved, and even some really fun events that if you want to travel and be a part of the action, we're going to make all of that available for you. So for those of you that are not familiar with our plan, if President Biden does not certify, oh, I love the mustache of sombrero. Thank you, DJC Wisdom. So if President Biden does not certify the Equal Rights Amendment now, in the next couple of weeks, then, and let's just assume for sake of discussion that he doesn't, thank you, 303 guy, then what we're going to do is go to each of the states and ask them to re-ratify. Why? You have to have 75% of the states, which is 38 states, agree to put something in the Constitution. They vote for it at the state house level and their state legislative chambers, I should say. And that's basically, yes, we would like this to be a part of the Constitution. We agree to this. That's called ratification. You need 75% of the states to ratify. Thank you for the heart. And when, I love this, it gives me such encouragement. So we needed 38 states. In 2020, the 38th state did ratify. We hit the goal. Virginia was the 38th state to ratify in 2020. But the courts and the Congress at that time said, yeah, it's been too long. It took too long for you to get the 38 states you needed, so we're not going to do anything with this. Is that legal? Depends on who you ask. But here is our approach. If the problem is it took too long, then we're going to go back to the early states that were super excited to ratify and ask them to re-ratify so that we can start that clock over, so that we can scoot that timeline and take away their excuse for saying no. The reason we call this organization Equal Rights Now is because we plan on creating enough community organization, media pressure, and political pressure so that we are not asking for our rights to be added to the Constitution. We are demanding inclusion in the Constitution. So that is our plan. So that means we'll be traveling all across the country to ratify this together. We're going to need as much of your help as possible, and that's what the meeting on the 8th is about. What specifically can you do? What can we do in each state? What can some of you do? Like some of you wrote and have some amazing talents. Yes, we need you. Graphic designers, let's get you working on social art and t-shirts. Let's get some of you with a great business mindset to bring different people to the table. I mean, no matter what your talent is, we want to have you involved. And it's not just for women, it's also for allies of women. And when we announce some members of our advisory board, which I'm so excited about, but I cannot share yet, I can assure you we will not be repeating arguably one of the mistakes of earlier waves of feminists who worked very bravely and tirelessly to do this. However, let's just say it wasn't exactly a diverse coalition that was pushing this forward. We are purposefully running out and making sure that we are representing a number of voices at the table. That means not just women of color, Black women, brown women, LGBTQ women, Indigenous women. We also want to make sure to represent women of different backgrounds and different faiths. One of the ways that this has not passed before is pitting us against each other. And we're just not going to fall for that this time. So it doesn't matter what your background is or how involved you are in advocacy or politics. This is something being treated the same in our Constitution is something that most of us can agree on, and it's long past time that we are added to this document. Okay, I want to also tell you something that's super fun about this, and then we're going to answer some questions. Today, if you're watching this live, and for those of you that are watching this later, today is December 10th, then DC Mayor Bowser actually declared today Equal Rights Amendment Day. This is really exciting. Now, why did she do that? Literally today, not every December 10th, but December 10th, 2024. She declared this Equal Rights Amendment Day. So this is not something that we're alone on. This is a sentiment that we're going to be working on with a lot of support from a lot of different places across the country and around the world, honestly. So one of the reasons she did this is because there are 46 U.S. senators who have called upon President Biden to say, while you're still in office, you have the 38 states. Just go ahead and certify this. What that would look like is he would then go, I want to make sure I get this title right, the archivist of the United States, he would go to them and say, add this to the Constitution. Would it work? Would it not? Would the Supreme Court be able to shoot him down? Would Congress try to stop him? These are questions that we don't have answers to, but the call right now is for him to at least try, at least fight to put our rights in the Constitution and move things forward. Do I think he's going to do this? I don't know. I have heard zero rumblings. I've heard of zero meetings that he has taken about this. It's not like I have my own line into the White House, so don't let me fool you on that. But I'm just saying, I like to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Comes with the job of being a fixer. So let's hope that he does this, and you can send letters, make phone calls, start asking him to do that right now. There's no harm in doing that. And we'll come up with another exciting project that we can work on together if we suddenly have rights. I'm not going to be upset about that. But just in case that doesn't happen, we're going to continue organizing, and we are not going to take no for answer in the year ahead. All right, that is our Equal Rights Now update. Now, we've done so much great work tonight. You guys have been amazing. Let's take your questions and comments, and let's do some more shout outs. First of all, already over 83,000 likes. Oh my goodness. This is a great group. I love being on here with you guys every week. Okay. Let me just tell you, we are going to do a TikTok live, a political fixer live. Excuse me. Some of you don't watch on TikTok. A political fixer live. Rad for Truth. Gigo Gal, I see both of you. It's so great to see you tonight. So we are going to do this next week. We're going to take a break for the holidays, and then we are going to come back on the 7th. And so next week we will be here. I've now discovered a new fun way that I can share that with subscribers and also on our video timeline. So we'll be playing with some of those tools to make sure you all mark it on your calendars. Right now, let's try one of those new things right now. Sarah, if you can hear me, can you as a moderator try to start a poll and ask everyone here if they prefer that we start at 8:30 Eastern in the evening or at 9 on Eastern. We're going to test out this new polling feature that we've been playing with on TikTok and see what you all say. So Sarah, if you can play with that, great, let us know. And you all can be our lovely guinea pigs for this evening and let us know if you prefer 8:30 or 9. All right, we moved it later so that our West Coast family could join us. All right, we're going to get to our top viewers for the evening, but first let's take some questions and comments for all of you. Okay, is it Debil, D-E-B-I-L? What about SCOTUS ruling allowing taking voters off rolls right up to the deadline? Okay, so we didn't get a chance to cover this much. I love those glasses. We didn't get a chance to cover this much during this show, but we are going to be talking about it in the next show. Here's a little bit of a teaser for you. There were a number of prominent officials, including AOC, Gavin Newsom, and none other than the man himself, Barack Obama, who made public statements this week alluding to the fact that they believed that the right to vote was in harm's way. Now, I've done a lot of digging into that. I'm going to do even more digging on it in the next coming days, and we're going to be talking about that, as well as this push for a recount. What's happening with it? What are the legal challenges being filed? And I want to thank many of you, including, I wish I had some of your names up there from last week. I will definitely publicly thank you in the next show for sure. But you have pushed me to look into this and take it seriously. And I was taking it seriously before, but I was also exhausted from the election. And so it was a little bit hard for me to understand all of the data in the videos you were sending me. So we are going to be researching that. We're going to be providing you with an update on what we're seeing with the recounts, with the legal challenges, and with the statements that have been made about voter rights, including what's happening in the Supreme Court. So we're going to be talking about that next week, and we'll be bringing you what our updates are. Now, thank you. I appreciate the flowers. I think that it won't necessarily change the outcome now. I'm not expecting, a new casting lineup on January 20th. So I don't want to mislead you. Something very, very dramatic would have to happen for that to occur. That's not what I'm saying. But I do genuinely want to know about our voter integrity, both in this last election and in the future. So my commitment that I've made to many of you who have messaged me and I've said on the air before is to look into this genuinely, and we will be discussing it in detail in the next Political Fixer Live. Really great questions. And it's one thing when one person says something that gets your ear prickly, then two people say it. But, former President Obama spent quite a bit of his speech this week talking about that. And he is anything but an alarmist. It looks like we have a poll. Yay, Sarah got it working. Sarah, you're a genius. I've often said this about you. Okay, so Sarah has a poll that you'll notice and hopefully you'll see in the corner here. And, Mia did it. Mia, we love you. Thank you, Mia. Okay, our team is so great. Love our Fixer team and how they work together. So we've got a poll here on 8:30 versus 9 Eastern. So this will determine the time for next week's TikTok. We want to hear from you. Pros and cons on each I could make, but I want to do what's best for all of you. Okay. So this is interesting. 75 Corvette says that since they put some servers in Texas, then they believe that TikTok has been banning and suppressing left creators. I have not heard that. I think that's interesting. I will say, obviously our numbers are going down right now. For me, it's after the election, but I will say that our community is growing. Our subscriber base is growing. TikTok has been extremely supportive of the content. I know they've been cracking down on divisive content, but I don't know that the Texas servers have impacted it, but you've given me something to look into, 75 Corvette, so I'll definitely take note. Sean French, is there a plan? Sarah, let me see that one again. Is there a plan to help New Jersey and Virginia? Oh, okay. So, Sean, great question. The answer is, the question is are we going to help these other states? And the answer is yes. In fact, I have already gotten calls from some people in New Jersey. So here's how this is going to work. When I get a call or our team gets a call, the bat signal goes up for the Political Fixer. Then one of the things we ask when we're talking to clients is what they want us to do and how can we help. Another thing that we like to ask is, are we allowed to generate public support for whatever we're helping you with? Sometimes, as you can understand, with crisis, we have to keep things quiet and be respectful of the client in a different way. So with that in mind, if we are given permission to share things with you, we will. And if we're given even more of a door open to engage you, then we absolutely are going to do that. We're going to let you know, are there volunteer opportunities? Are there times for you to get questions answered by different people like candidates running? Is there a way for you to participate in whatever way? So we're going to be bringing that to you throughout next year. And yes, New Jersey, we have already been in talks with them to help with the governor's race. We are looking at this new special election that we're going to be helping with in Florida. And if any of you have other races that you think I should look into, and I'll just say this, we do a lot besides just races. As a Political Fixer team, we can help to pass legislation. We can help raise awareness on issues. With all of us working together, there's more than just elections. There's actually governing. So if there's something happening in your community that you think is really important, or maybe you want us to help highlight an issue that the media isn't paying attention to, that's happening in your backyard that's important to you, then that's what we're here for. So definitely let us know what's going on with that. But yes, New Jersey, yes. I have not talked to anyone yet in Virginia, but I am going to be reaching out to a number of people after the first of the year. All right, we have our poll, our first flash poll for Political Fixer Live, and it is clear that by nearly 60%, You guys wanted to start at 9 p.m. Eastern. Awesome. I actually thought that might be different, so you surprise me all the time. So our live for next Tuesday on TikTok is going to be at 9 p.m. And then on Thursday, we'll post it on YouTube for free for anyone to see on the Political Fixer channel. So let's see here. Now what I don't know is how to get it off my screen. Got it. I'm a genius. All right. So as we wrap up here, we've got over 90,000 likes. Sean French, I wanted to make sure to acknowledge you. I didn't say your last name earlier for that great New Jersey and Virginia questions. I agree. Those states are close and they're absolutely flippable. All right. Let's say hi to Edna Linz. Be kind, do better. DJC Wisdom and the 303 guy. You guys have been giving us definite great gifts, and I really appreciate that. I don't want to go without forgetting the question about the DNC chair and Ben Winkler. For those of you that haven't been following, what typically happens after any election year is that you have a change in leadership on both sides. Some of it is the jostling around when the new administration takes power on the cabinet positions, but on the side that doesn't take over, then as you can imagine, there's generally some shakeups in that area as well. Well, one of those shakeups is that Jamie Harrison will no longer be the chair of the National Democratic Party. There's been a number of people who have stepped up and a number of names that have been floated, but one of those is Ben Winkler. If you're not familiar with him, he's been the head of the Wisconsin State Democrats. Now, let me tell you what I love about Ben Winkler. He makes, I don't know him personally, we've only communicated via like texting and messaging, and I've shown him support through the years. But what I love about how he does things is he makes things in organizing that a lot of times get ignored because they're not as exciting as political commercials. He makes them seem interesting, and he makes sure that the grassroots gets funded. Now, they don't win every time. Obviously, Wisconsin was not victorious this time, but they have flipped a lot in that state. They've made some huge strides. Ella would like to say hello. She's right here. They've made some huge strides in the state legislature, and they also successfully flipped a critical Supreme Court seat in the state. And when you're talking about a special election for a state Supreme Court seat, it's very hard to generate enthusiasm and funding and volunteers and media attention around something like that. But he has gotten Wisconsin races to go national. He's also often partnered with a lot of people to raise awareness for the needs of his state. For example, the cast of Veep, like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, they'll often do things like Zoom fundraising calls for Wisconsin because he's always advocating for his state. So there's a couple of things to this. On the one hand, we could make the case that Wisconsin didn't win this year, and so therefore maybe we shouldn't give it to someone who wasn't leading a victorious charge. On the other hand, you could say, listen, this is a tough state to win in. He's made huge progress in other areas, and he fights for his people. He fights for his volunteers, for his staff, for his state, for his voters. He is tireless. I think he would be an excellent choice. That being said, this isn't a formal endorsement because I don't know who all will step in. It could be that we had someone like a Stacey Abrams that comes forward, and then it would really be great to see this competition of where they want to take the party. So he has thrown his name in the ring. Here's what I'll say. It was a devastating loss for many of us, this election. However, I am really excited to see that we have such a bright, beautiful, diverse, talented, amazing, supportive, kind group of people that are still sitting here on the bench as a party, and we're still bringing people into this very inclusive group. That gives me a lot of hope for the future. I have my complaints with the party establishment for sure. I definitely have complaints with politics in general, and it can be a very frustrating system. But it really gives me hope when someone like a Winkler says, hey, listen, this was tough. I think I can fight even harder next time. I feel like that's the type of person that we want, is someone that doesn't give up and doesn't go home when it gets really tough. So great question. I think we'd be lucky to have him. But that being said, we have so many other talented people. If you know of other people that are running, let us know so we can keep things good. 75 Corvette is saying, Dems are not that great at messaging. that I think is another whole different political fixer live. But here's what I'll say to leave on a positive note, though it's a valid conversation, which is that part of that messaging comes from us. I think if we're depending on legacy and corporate media to drive our message, then we're always going to lose, because our interests as people usually are not the same interests as corporations. It's just the way that it is. And also when things are going well, like someone, for example, turns around an entire economy, scoops us out of the jaws of death of a pandemic, and has a completely scandal-free White House for 4 years, those headlines are not as exciting as the rancor and the disagreement and these people over here that are unhappy. So I think we can't depend on that type of media anymore to get things done. And that's why tonight and these communities and things like this are so important to me. And they're so important to my team as well. And I'm so grateful that you choose to spend time with us, because this right here, hopefully you had some fun. Hopefully you had a good night tonight, learned a few things, contributed a few things, gave me a few things to wear in my hair. But also, this is the work, talking about it, planning, encouraging each other, forming a community, putting ideas out there, deciding what we feel and what we're going to do next. What different fun mountains are we going to try to climb together next? That is the work. And there's nothing that says that we can't keep that joyful work moving just because we had a setback before. All right. We've got 75 Corvette also said Ben is one of the most progressive and his reputation is impeccable. Again, I don't pretend to know as much as those of you that are there, but everything I hear about this guy is great. So really good question to the person who asked it earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't get to that until the end. Okay, for those of you who are subscribers, you'll be getting another subscriber video from me this week, and we'll be talking more about January benefits, including the new podcast that's coming out that will be free to everyone, not just subscribers, new training materials that we'll make available, some of them to everyone, but some modules we'll make available only to our subscriber family. And then, of course, now that we have figured out how the polling works, we're going to make sure that our subscribers get to steer some of these conversations in the future so that your topics get to the front of the line. Let's do our top viewers. All right, do we have our top viewers? Now that we've hit over 100,000 likes, you guys have earned it. Let's see. All right. Who's our top 5? Eddie, can you pull up the top 5 for me? Oh, hi, Claude. I wanted to say hi to you. I didn't see you earlier. Okay, let's see. I see the top gifters. I see 3. Okay, we've got our 3 top viewers. Are we ready? Okay, Eddie, can you just indicate for me which one of those is number 1 and which one of those is number 2? So I want to make sure that I give you, you guys get so competitive with this. You're so great with all of your likes and shares and hearts and all of that. I want to make sure that I give you credit here. So your top viewers, you've got, all right, here we go. So our number 3 top viewer for tonight is, Jigo Gal. Okay, if you're still on, can you say, is it pronounced with a hard G or a J, like giraffe? Is it Jigo Gal or is it Gigo Gal? I want to make sure that I say your name correctly. You've been a part of the Political Fixer Now family for a while. Okay, so who's our number 2? Divine AF Girl. Oh, fantastic. You were on the list last week. That's awesome. I'm going to have to come up with something else fun to give you guys because I've already followed you. So I'll come up with something fun by January that we'll do for our top live family viewers when we do it. And then our number 1 viewer for this evening is Mojo Smooch. So if you are a subscriber, let's see those Political Fixer emotes. And let's give them some props for being the top viewers. If you are not a subscriber, let's definitely give them some love in the chat and congratulate them for all of their positive encouragement. That's awesome, Mojo Smooch. Congratulations for being our top audience member. And I see Mia cheering you on as well. Oh, look, we've got the little, someone's got their Kamala emotes going. I love it. All right. Well, it's been a fun evening, everyone. I want to thank you on behalf of the Political Fixer team. Tonight we had Eddie and Sarah and Mia and Jason making sure that hopefully this was a fun evening for all of you. Oh, somebody's just breaking out all of the subscriber emotes. I love it. We're going to be sharing with you some more subscriber emotes in the new year. I can't wait. It's going to be super fun. And if any of you have questions, definitely go to politicalfixer.com. You've got a little bit of homework. Mark your calendars for next week's live. You guys decided The people have spoken. It's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, next week's Political Fixer Live. Then it'll be on our YouTube channel, Political Fixer, on Thursdays in full, completely free. Then also, I want you to mark your calendars for January 8th. That is a Wednesday. On YouTube Live, we're going to host our first national team meeting for Equal Rights Now, where you can learn more about how to get involved, what the plan is, and weigh in on what's happening with your state to get women equal rights in the Constitution. And yes, we will be following to see if maybe we pick a new project to do together, but just in case, mark that calendar for the 8th of January. Then I also want you, when you get a chance, to go to Political Fixer Live, and there's 2 new links there with red buttons right there on the homepage. The first thing is, if you are so inclined, we would love for you to support, yes, of course, Equal Rights Now, it's very important, but Democracy Legacy is splitting contributions. When you go to that little red button, it takes you to Act Blue. Democracy Legacy will be splitting those donations 50-50. Those donations will go half to Equal Rights Now and half to Gay Valamont, who is running to take over the seat for us to try to flip the Matt Gaetz seat in a special election that will be happening April 1st of this year. We can flip that seat if we work together as a Political Fixer team. And so I'm calling on all of you to do what you can, and we'll be bringing you more volunteer opportunities, including phone banking, texting, and other ways to get involved with the campaign in the coming weeks. And your final bit of homework is, if you scroll down just a little bit further on that homepage on politicalfixer.com, then you're going to see a new red button next to Political Fixer Live. That's going to have the link to the YouTube Live. You can bookmark it there, or we'll be sending you all out some different emails on your list, and we'll be sending out videos as well. Your final thing is to have a great week and stay safe this week. Thanks for everything you're doing to support each other and support me and support this community. Until next time, everyone, I'm Shauna Presley Vircher, the Political Fixer, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks and good night. Is that good, Ella? Did we do a good job? She's right here. She says we did a good job. All right, see you all soon.